and the King, comfort of the Spirit, true intuitive, word, president, full of soul, things, treasure, blessings, and giver of life. Come and abide us and cleanse us from every impurity, and save our souls, O good.
So, this this part, which is called the Book of Noah, is essentially an expansion of several chapters in Genesis. And this whole thing is, it's either an expansion of, or Genesis is a contraction of this text. And what it does is it brings in all sorts of details and all sorts of interesting kinds of twists on the story. So I think basically I should just read it and comment on it rather than have to read it twice. After some days, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose, and the hair of his head and his long locks were white as wool, and his eyes beautiful. And when he opened his eyes, he lighted up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. Makes me think he was probably an albino. And thereupon he arose in the hands of the midwife, opened his mouth, and conversed with the Lord of righteousness. So you have this newly born infant conversing with God. And his father Lamech was afraid of him and fled and came to his father Methuselah. And he said unto him, I have begotten a strange son, diverse from and unlike man, and resembling the sons of the God of heaven. And his nature is different, and he is not like us. And his eyes are as the rays of the sun, and his countenance is glorious. And it seemed to me that he is not sprung from me, but from the angels. And I fear that in his days a wonder may be wrought on the earth. And now, my father, I am here to petition thee and implore thee that thou mayest go to Enoch, our father, and learn from him the truth, for his dwelling place is among the angels. That is, Enoch's dwelling place is among the angels. And when Methuselah heard the words of his son, he came to me to the ends of the earth, for he had heard that I was there, and he cried aloud. And I heard his voice, and I came to him, and I said to him, Behold, here am I, my son. Wherefore hast thou come to me? Noah, this is Enoch speaking. And he answered and said, Because of a great cause of anxiety have I come to thee, and because of a disturbing vision have I approached. And now, my father, hear me. Unto Lamech, my son, there hath been born a son, the like of whom there is none, and his nature is not like man's nature. And the color of his body is whiter than snow, and redder than the bloom of a rose. The hair of his head is whiter than white wool, and his eyes are like the rays of the sun. And he opened his eyes, and thereupon lighted up the whole house. And he arose in the hands of the midwife, and opened his mouth, and blessed the Lord of heaven. And his father Lamech became afraid and fled to me, and did not believe that he was sprung from him, but he was in the likeness of the angels of heaven. And behold, I have come to thee that thou mayest make known to me the truth. And I, Enoch, answered and said unto him, The Lord will do a new thing on the earth, and this I have already seen in a vision, and make known to thee that in the generation of my father Jared, some of the angels of heaven transgressed the word of the Lord. So here we go into a review of the previous books of Enoch. Some of the angels of heaven transgressed the word of the Lord. And behold, they commit sin and transgress the law, and have married themselves with women and commit sin with them, and have married some of them, and have begotten children by them. And they shall produce on earth giants, not according to the spirit, but according to the flesh. And there shall be a great punishment on the earth, and the earth shall be cleansed from all impurity. there's a video on YouTube uh, about the races of the giants. There were like 5 races of the giants who ranged from 10 feet to 16 feet tall.
Mm.
Um, there must be some historical basis in that. Anyway,
There is physical evidence of giants.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Are there skeletons?
Mhm.
Well, supposedly, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also like fossilized remains that they've found too on archaeological digs.
Mm.
So I didn't know that there were several races, but I know that there is evidence that giants did exist. And I always thought that was fascinating because I always thought it was just mythology, but no, it's based in historical fact.
Yeah, evident. The ones that were enumerated in this video were the ones in the Middle East, many of which were mentioned in the scriptures, actually.
Mm.
So remember the character in the scriptures, Og, king of Bashan? Supposedly he was a giant. Anyway.
And David and Goliath, right? It's not just a
Right.
giant tale.
Yeah, Goliath was a giant. There's a mini series, if they're still calling it that, or a series of videos on the Amazon Prime, which are well worth taking a look at.
Mm.
It's called The House of David. And they're still in their first year of production. I know one of the writers of that series, and he was a little disappointed because he said that the actual script was very historically accurate.
Mm.
But then Amazon got in there and made it a little more dramatic for storytelling purposes.
Hey, Vladyka, that's
Yeah.
why Meriwether Lewis was assassinated, because in his travels across the U.S., they found numerous mounds
Uh-huh.
with the giants buried in them, and the agents of the Smithsonian didn't want that information published at all.
Huh.
Mm.
Well, that's
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and Vladyka also, one archaeologist I just texted out or messaged the chat, found those bones that they're pictured in this PDF that I have if you forward through the addendum. But they sold them to the Smithsonian for $500, which is a lot of money back then. And they've never been on display. We've never seen them. They're gone. So the Smithsonian didn't buy them to display them and so that people could see our history.
Yeah.
Well, it opens up the whole controversy on the actual age of buildings, especially in Europe, because so many of them have these huge, huge doors, which are ridiculous for our size, and they go in for energy conservation. They put in human-sized doors, but they're like, why would they build doors that big when we're only, at the maximum 6 foot long? So it could bring to the whole question of how long have these buildings really been around?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we've been lied to about a lot of our history.
Well, then there's this, which is sacred history. So
I could just say that we just watched The House of David, and it was very good. I keep thinking about it actually, and I was very impressed that they did stick to the scriptural account, and then they embellished some things for the sake of storytelling, but if you know the story at all, it's not offensive, like at all,
no.
what they've added in.
Yeah. Yeah, I've even thought that maybe that would be a very good thing to do together in this class, is read through the text, the scriptural text, which is 2 Samuel and I think going into 1 Kings, which would be good, to go through that whole history.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And we could have snacks.
That's right. So, and then watch the series and critique it. So, Okay, verse 15, and they shall produce on the earth giants, not according to the spirit, but according to the flesh. And there shall be a great punishment on the earth. The earth shall be cleansed from all impurity. And there shall come a great destruction over the whole earth. There shall be a deluge and a great destruction for 1 year. And the son who has been born unto you shall be left on the earth, and his 3 children shall be saved with him. When all mankind that are on the earth shall die, he and his sons shall be saved. Of course, that also means with their wives. But now make known to thy son Lamech that he who has been born is in truth his son, and call his name Noah. For he shall be left to you, and he and his sons shall be saved from the destruction which shall come upon the earth on account of all the sin and all the unrighteousness which shall be consummated on the earth in his days. And after that there shall be still more unrighteousness than that which was first consummated on the earth. For I know the mysteries of the holy ones. For he, the Lord, has showed me and informed me, and I have read in the heavenly tablets. And I saw written on them that generation upon generation shall transgress, till a generation of righteousness arises, and transgression is destroyed, and sin passes away from the earth, and all manner of good comes upon it. And now, my son, go and make known to thy son Lamech that his son, which has been born, is in truth his son, and that is no lie. And when Methuselah had heard the words of his father Enoch, for he had shown to him everything in secret, he returned and showed to him and called the name of that son Noah, for he will comfort the earth after all the destruction.
Was Noah this albino?
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
in this text anyway.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
What I'm thinking is we'll go through this, and then we'll look at the scriptural text. And in those...
Vladyka, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. No, it's fine.
No, on verse 15, where you said that there's going to be giants, not according to the spirit, or rather the text says not according to the spirit, but according to the flesh. And I think that reminds us, or me, of the men of renown. And we talked about, there's a theory out there that, oh, well, they didn't mean giants physically huge. They just meant men that were so powerful and strong and great leaders and all that. Well, that seems like that would be giants according to the spirit, not right, according to the flesh. So this actually describes a physical being that's huge.
Right.
Not one of great reputation, in other words.
Right. Well, it's interesting, and when we read through these passages in Genesis that this refers to, we'll see that there's a very different take on it. So calling Enoch. So apparently this is a number of years later. And in those days, Noah saw that the earth had sunk down and its destruction was nigh. And he arose from thence and went to the ends of the earth and cried aloud to his grandfather Enoch. Noah said 3 times with an embittered voice, "Hear me, hear me, hear me." And I said unto him, "Tell me what it is that is falling out of the earth, that the earth is in such evil plight and shaken, lest perchance I shall perish with it." So the narrator goes from being Enoch to Noah. And thereupon there was a great commotion on the earth, and a voice was heard from heaven, and I fell on my face. And Enoch my grandfather came and stood by me and said unto me, "Why hast thou cried unto me with a bitter cry and weeping? A command has gone forth from the presence of the Lord concerning those who dwell on the earth, that their ruin is accomplished, because they have learned all the secrets of the angels and all the violence of the Satans, and all their powers, the most secret ones. And all the power of those who practice sorcery, and the power of witchcraft, the power of those who make molten images, for the whole earth, and how silver is produced from the dust of the earth, and how soft metal originates in the earth. For lead and tin are not produced from the earth like the first. It is a fountain that produces them, and an angel stands therein, and that angel is preeminent. And after that, my grandfather Enoch took hold of me by my hand and raised me up and said to me, Go, for I have asked the Lord of spirits as touching this commotion on the earth. And he said to me, Because of their unrighteousness, their judgment has been determined upon and shall not be withheld by me forever. Because of the sorceries which they have searched out and learned, the earth and those who dwell upon it shall be destroyed. And these they have no place of repentance forever, because they have shown them what was hidden, and they are damned, or they are the damned. But as for thee, my son, the Lord of spirits knows that thou art pure and guiltless of this reproach concerning the secrets. And he has destined thy name to be among the holy, and will preserve thee among those who dwell on the earth, and has destined thy righteous seed, both for kingship and great honors. And from thy seed shall proceed a fountain of the righteous, and holy without number forever. After that, he showed me the angels of punishment who are prepared to come and let loose all the powers of the waters which are beneath the earth, in order to bring judgment and destruction on all who dwell on the earth. And the Lord of spirits gave commandment to the angels who were going forth, that they should not cause the water to rise, but should hold them in check. For those angels were over the powers of the waters. And I went away from the presence of Enoch. So this is important because Noah, of course, is a second Adam, right? All of humanity that is saved comes through Noah.
Interesting.
Wow. Now this is somewhat of a recap of the earlier books. And in those days the word of God came unto me, and he said unto me, Noah, thy lot is come upon me, a lot without blame, a lot of love and uprightness. And now the angels are working, and when they have completed their task, I will place my hand upon it and preserve it. And there shall come forth from it the seed of life, and a change shall set in, so that the earth will not remain without inhabitant. And I will make fast thy seed before me forever and ever. And I will spread abroad those who dwell with thee. It shall not be unfruitful on the face of the earth, but it shall be blessed and multiply on the earth in the name of the Lord. And he will imprison these angels, who have shown unrighteousness in that burning valley, which my grandfather Enoch had formerly showed to me in the west among the mountains of gold and silver and iron and soft metal and tin. And I saw that valley in which there was a great convulsion, and a convulsion of the waters. And when all this took place, from that fiery molten metal and from the convulsion thereof in that place, there was produced a smell of sulfur, and it was connected with those waters. And that valley of the angels who had led astray burned beneath that land. And through its valleys proceed streams of fire, where these angels are punished, who had led astray those who dwell upon the earth. But those waters shall in those days serve for the kings and the mighty and the exalted, and those who dwell on the earth, for the healing of the body, but for the punishment of the spirit. Now their spirit is full of lust, that they may be punished in their body. For they have denied the Lord of spirits, and see their punishment daily, and yet believe not in his name. And in proportion as the burning of their bodies becomes severe, a corresponding change shall take place in their spirit forever and ever. For before the Lord of spirits none shall utter an idle word. For the judgment shall come upon them, because they believe in the lust of their body, and deny the Lord of spirits. And those same waters will undergo a change in those days. For when those angels are punished in these water springs shall change their temperature. And when the angels ascend, this water of the spring shall change and become cold. And I heard Michael answering and saying, This judgment wherewith the angels are judged is a testimony for the kings and the mighty who possess the earth. Because these waters of judgment minister to the healing of the body of the kings and the lust of their body, Therefore, they will not see and will not believe that those waters will change and become a fire which burns forever. Anybody have any questions or comments on this? It's pretty clear.
Pretty clear.
Okay. Okay, this is that recap of the first book of Enoch, or the first section of the Book of Enoch. Let's take a look. Okay. 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 Okay, so would somebody like to read from Genesis 5 here, 21 on?
I can read.
Okay.
Can you make it just a little bit bigger though?
Larger, yes.
How's that?
Okay, that's better. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God, and after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all of the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son and called his name Noah, saying, "Out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands." Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any that they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown.
Okay, so this is the Nephilim were the fruit of the union between the angels who fell and human women. When the sons of God, meaning the angels, came into the daughters of man and bore children to them. But this is quite a contrast with the Book of Enoch. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. You don't, which is ultimately a very positive statement, right? I don't think you get quite that sense in Enoch. Okay, keep going.
The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to build it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, its breadth, 50 cubits, and its height, 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all the flesh which is in the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, and of the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind, 2 of every sort shall come into you to keep them alive. Also take with you every sort of food that is eaten and stored up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this, and he did all that God commanded him. The Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and his mate, and a pair of all of the animals that are not clean, the male and his mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens also, male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of all the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground. And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him.
Okay. Let's try and get this back. I think you know, with the Book of Enoch, everything is there's so much more detail in everything. I think it's also important to note that that the evaluation of the Nephilim or the giants is very different between the 2 texts. And so
I have a question about that, actually.
uh-huh.
Because it seems as if when you read Homer and it talks about the loss of the great men, the powerful men, what it has kind of that echo of the men of renown. They speak very favorably. and that there aren't people like that on the earth anymore, you know, that these men are no more. And it's kind of a wistful thing. And I wonder, you know, the Greek half men, half gods, these guys, I mean, could it be influence from those cultures that would kind of infiltrate these, I mean, I don't know, this thing or this concept in them?
Well, um, you know, nobody knows when Enoch was written. You know, I mean, it's if you were to date it to the original Enoch, the what grandson of Adam or sixth from Adam, I think it would be about
Mhm.
5,000 years
Mhm.
or thereabouts. 6,000 years. I don't think so. You know, but you know, you think about it. This is, you know, this whole all of this literature, this culture, is from the Semitic culture of the Middle East, um, speaking various Semitic languages, um, and with a tradition. And this is, you know, and basically this is the Semitic tradition, um, the the religious vision, um, of Semitic culture going back, you know, and everything from, you know, uh, from the Hebrews to the um, Syrians to uh, the Hittites, and all these cultures, the Babylonians, you know, the Assyrians. It's all a single cultural entity.
Mhm.
Now, there's another cultural entity, um, which is uh, thought to, you know, of the um, well, the Aryans,
Mhm.
um, otherwise otherwise known as the Scythians, um, that sent out, which who lived in the area between um, the Black Sea and the Altai. You know, this is 3,000 years ago. And the Scythians, you know, they were horse culture. They were very democratic, and they sent forth, you know, they sent out waves of immigration um, to the west, um, and to the south, and so this became Indo-European culture. So this is as much uh, the Celts and the Germans and the Slavs, but also uh, the Greeks, the Hellenes, um, were from Indo-European culture. You know, the Greeks were blonde-haired and blue-eyed. The heroes of the Trojan War were all blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And you look at the statues from in Greece, in Asia Minor, um, you know, which is all these areas um, where the Indo-European tribes went, um, you know, as well as, you know, in the north, we know the Celts and the Germans. And the Celts were also in the middle of Anatolia too. The Galatians were Celts. And anywhere, all over the world, you find places called Galatia or Galatia. They're Celts. Um, um, but you know that uh, it was a very distinct culture from the Semites. You know, equally ancient, but not. Um, it wasn't. I don't know if it was even a literary, if it was even a literate culture until they arrived in Greece, and even some of the Egyptians, you know, um, we think of, Egyptians were not Semites either. They speak Arabic because it was imposed on them by the Arabs uh, who conquered the area for Islam. But it was but Coptic is not a Semitic language. The old Ethiopic Ge'ez is a Semitic language, I believe, or it has large aspects of Semitic language because it probably came out of that. So culturally, you got two very different kinds of, you know, and they would have, and just as the Aryans, the Indo-Europeans have their own set of mythology and understanding of how the world was made. And, there are some parallels, of course. But the Indo-Europeans went around the Semitic world. And so the Persians are Indo-European, and the Northern Indians are Indo-European. They're sunburned Indo-Europeans, essentially. There was a very interesting thing in National Geographic a few years ago of albino families in India, which is a pretty substantial group. They look just like Europeans, with albino coloring. So, and that probably harks back to, their origin from the Aryan or Indo-European roots. Later on, there were other migrations and peoples meshed. Kind of the early inhabitants of Europe, both of the Balkans and of Italy and of all the way to Spain, were kind of small, dark people. So, and you still have isolated groups within within Europe. There's like 175 or 80 languages in Europe. All these tribes, some of which have maintained their identity, and they mixed with the Celts and the Germans and so forth. So, but this reflects the Semitic tradition. Now, by the time that the Old Testament was being put down in Hebrew and in Aramaic, there was not only contact, but there was exchange between these cultural groups. So it'd be interesting. So your comment about the men of renown, that does sound Greek. That does sound like something right out of Greek mythology. And I wonder if but you don't find that language in Enoch. And so by the time they wrote down the New Testament or the Old Testament, it probably is it's probably a result of that cultural influence.
Well, it's why I asked because, even just as I was homeschooling the kids, and we would always go back to this, we would always go back to, the beginnings of recorded history. And, we were Protestants at the time, but we read the Bible and we read the mythology of all different parts of the world. And when we got to this and we were reading, Genesis, but we were also reading, Homer, we were reading the Egyptian mythologies and things like that as well. The kids and I would always kind of go, what do you think about that? And so I guess that's why I asked, because we always would puzzle over it. And I think we now have more information than we did at the time we were studying this, but like we were unaware of the Book of Enoch and things like that. But that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Well, there's a very old story that Pythagoras went to Jerusalem, and he talked with the priests of the and that was still within the period of the existence of the first temple. It was before the destruction, because Pythagoras was like 7th century BC, and the destruction happened in 586. And so there's speculation as to what was the interchange there, because Pythagoras took what he learned in Jerusalem and took it back to Greece, and really he's one of the most foundational figures of in Greek philosophy and certainly of mathematics. And was that part of the wisdom of the first temple? Certainly, there was a lot of astronomy. I won't say astrology, but there was astrology too. In ancient religion, and so, and that's part of what what's talked about in here, that and it gets to it. It talks about how the sun and the moon and the stars are animate beings, and God calls them by name, and they answer back to him, and and the stars, so that's quite that's a unique cultural tradition to this context of the context of this, that was removed, because you don't have much of that left in the Old Testament, and because the editors of the Old Testament rejected angels. They rejected the noetic nature of the cosmos. So, for example, another book that's parallel to Genesis is the Book of Jubilees, and that, like Enoch, is also in the Ethiopian canon. And it talks about on day one, when God created the heavens and the earth. We all know the story. That he also created the angels, the angelic hosts. So basically, go ahead.
I was finally able to find some of the previous discussions online. So I watched today the first one when you were talking about the whole kind of background of Enoch, which helped me a lot, because I'm reading through the second time. And after listening to that first lesson you gave, to me, I believe there are multiple authors of Enoch, because it just seems like the pacing and everything is not the same. And so it sort of reminded me of the New Testament, that every chapter of Enoch has a different description, even though it's the same way like in the New Testament, depending on which apostle is telling the story, there'll be different descriptive things included. And so in the time of the waters, I mean, it's earlier than where we are now, but one description was when the waters will be sent, you know, the waters above are male and the waters spring forth underneath are female. And that's a unique description only to this text that I haven't found anywhere else.
Yeah. This passage here that, you know, talking about the waters for the punishment of the kings, that it heals their body, but inflames their spirits, because they deny, you know, because they focus on the lust of their body and deny the Spirit of the Lord. How the waters themselves will be changed. I mean, this is interesting. I don't think there's anything in the scriptures about this.
And that last line 14, I wanted to ask you, and will not believe that those waters will change and become a fire which burns forever. Is he perhaps talking about lava?
I don't know. It could be.
You know,
Yeah. Anybody else? So otherwise we'll go through this chapter, which is a little on the longer side. So we read through the 3 books of the parables. And after that, my grandfather gave me the teaching of all the secrets in the book of the parables, which had been given to him, and he put them together for me in the words of the book of the parables. On that day, Michael answered Raphael and said, "The power of the Spirit transports and makes me to tremble because of the severity of the judgment of the secrets, the judgment of the angels. Who can endure the severe judgment which has been executed, and before which they melt away?" And Michael answered again and said to Raphael, "Who is he whose heart is not softened concerning it, and whose reins are not troubled by this word of judgment that has gone forth upon them, because of those who have thus led them out?" And it came to pass when he stood before the Lord of spirits, Michael said thus to Raphael, "I will not take their part under the eye of the Lord, for the Lord of spirits has been angry with them, because they do as if they were the Lord. Therefore all that is hidden shall come upon them forever and ever. For neither angel nor man shall have his portion, but alone they have received their judgment forever and ever. And after this judgment they shall terrify and make them to tremble, because they have shown this to those who dwell on the earth. And behold the names of those angels. First of them is Samjaza, the second Artakifa, and the third Armin, the fourth Kokabel, the fifth Turiel, the sixth Rumjal, the seventh Danjal, the eighth Nekael, the ninth Barakel, the 10th Azazel, the 11th Armoros, the 12th Batarjal, the 13th Busasajal, the 14th Hananel, the 15th Turel, the 16th Simapesel, the 17th Jetrel, the 18th Tumael, the 19th Turel, the 20th Rumael, and the 21st Azazel. These are the chiefs of their angels and their names and their chief ones, over hundreds and over 50s and over 10s. The name of the first Jekon, that is, the one who led astray the sons of God, and brought them down to the earth and led them astray through the daughters of men. The second was named Asbael. He imparted to the sons of God evil counsel, and led them astray so that they defiled their bodies with the daughters of men. And the third was named Gadrael. He it is who showed the children of men all the blows of death, and led astray Eve, and showed the shield and coat of mail and the sword for battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men. And from his hand they have proceeded against those who dwell on the earth from that day and forevermore. The fourth was named Penemu, Penemu. He taught the children of men the bitter and the sweet, and taught them all the secrets of their wisdom. And he instructed mankind in writing with ink and paper, and thereby many sinned from eternity to eternity until this day, for men were not created for such a purpose, to give confirmation to their good faith with pen and ink. For men were created exactly like the angels, to the intent that they should continue pure and righteous, and death, which destroys everything, could not have taken hold of them. But through this knowledge they are perishing, and through this power it is consuming men. This is interesting, because in Genesis, the fall is all about Eve, Adam and Eve in the garden, and eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. And while you could say this is the tree of knowledge, it's very, in Genesis it's very obscure as to what that is. Well, the fall comes in the Book of Enoch, not so much from eating the fruit of the tree, but from being taught by the fall of the angels, and being taught evil things by them, and then the women being impregnated by them.
The Lord of Spirits podcast has a podcast entitled "The Five-ish Falls of Angels," and it talks about they talk about this, how the fall of man and angels from God did not happen all at once, but in kind of in degrees.
Right. Yeah, and that's what you see in this literature.
And that one of the angels is responsible for corrupting Eve in this passage.
Right, exactly. The fifth was named Kazdeja, and this is he who showed the children of men all the wicked smithings of spirits and demons, and the smitings of the embryo in the womb, or abortion, that it may pass away, and the bites of the serpent, and the smitings which befall through the noontide heat, the son of the serpent named Tabeat. This is the task of Casbiel, the chief of the oath which he showed to the holy ones when he dwelt high above in glory, and its name is Bika. The angel requested Michael to show him the hidden name, that he might enunciate it in the oath, so that those might quake before that name, and that name and oath, who revealed all that was in secret to the children of men. This is the power of the oath, for it is strong, powerful and strong, and he placed this oath, Akai, in the hand of Michael. These are the secrets of this oath, that they are strong through this oath. The heaven was suspended before the world was created and forever, and through it the earth was founded upon the water, and from the secret recesses of the mountains come beautiful waters from the creation of the world and unto eternity. And through that oath the sea was created as its foundation. He set for it the sand against the time of anger, and it dare not pass beyond it from the creation of the world into eternity. And through that oath are depths made fast and abide and stir not from their place from eternity to eternity. Through that oath the sun and moon complete their course, deviate not from their ordinance from eternity to eternity. And through that oath the stars complete their course, and he calls them by their names, and they answer him from eternity to eternity. And this oath is mighty over them, and through it their paths are preserved, and their course is not destroyed. And there was great joy amongst them, and they blessed and glorified and extolled, because the name of that Son of Man had been revealed unto them. And he sat on the throne of his glory, and the sum of judgment was given unto the Son of Man. And he caused the sinners to pass away and be destroyed from off the face of the earth, and those who have led the world astray. With chains shall they be bound in their assemblage place of destruction, shall they be imprisoned, and all their works vanish from the face of the earth. From henceforth there shall be nothing corruptible, for that Son of Man has appeared and has seated himself on the throne of his glory. So this is obviously is the coming of the Son of Man. All evil shall pass away before his face, and the word of that Son of Man shall go forth and be strong before the Lord of spirits. So I wonder if you could, this whole thing about the oath. I wonder if you could call this a covenant.
Oh, maybe.
Because underlying, and in the Old Testament, the covenant with Noah was known as the eternal covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, this is essentially God's covenant with the creation. The oath was suspended before the world was created, and through it, the oath, the covenant, the earth was founded upon the water and from the secret recesses of the mountains. Through that oath, the sea was created and its foundation, for he set it for sand against the time of anger. And it dare not pass beyond it from the creation of the world unto eternity. The depths are made fast and stir not from their place from eternity to eternity. The sun and moon complete their source, the stars complete their course. He calls them by their names. And the oath is mighty over them, and through it their paths are preserved and their course is not destroyed. And it's there are those who say that the new covenant in Christ is the restoration of the eternal covenant, because that was the whole point of the Day of Atonement.
Mm-hmm.
The Day of Atonement was the renewal of that covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and of course, in the Second Temple, they did not have the Day of Atonement, at least not in the original form, because their focus was not the eternal covenant. Their focus was the covenant with Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lost track of the eternal covenant, as it were. But it's, and so the coming of the Son of Man, the coming of Christ, and in fact, through his whole dispensation of salvation, his being incarnate, his being crucified and overcoming death and resurrection, is what brought him to the point where he sits on the throne of glory and the sum of judgment is given to him, causing sinners to pass away and be destroyed from the face of the earth. And the binding of the sinners and especially and of the angels. And so after the enthronement of the Son of Man, in other words, after the second coming and the judgment, nothing henceforth there shall be nothing corruptible. For that Son of Man has appeared and has seated himself on the throne of his glory, and all evil shall pass away before his face, and the word of that Son of Man shall go forth and be strong before the Lord of spirits. So it's, I mean, obviously, this is prophetic.
And I think it's interesting, like you're always teaching us how Christ always echoes back to show
Right.
that he was fulfilling all the prophecies, right?
Yep.
Like always making references. And so This week I was just reading the chapter in Matthew where Christ teaches we're not supposed to give oaths. Let our yeses be yeses and our noes be noes, but we're not supposed to make any oaths. And I immediately thought of this passage in Enoch.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like that was one of his teachings. So there must be, when they're talking about the oath, I thought that it must, like you said, it must be evoking the power of creation. And that's something that's not within our realm. That's not our duty or our gift that we were given. That's for the creator alone.
Uh-huh. So much to think about.
Yes.
So do you all find this useful?
It's interesting, Vladyka.
Yeah, and Enoch is a very interesting text, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely different.
It's fascinating how it, you know, how it, you know, is a kind of a summation of, well, it's the scriptures are a summation of what's in Enoch. So whether, you know, whenever the text of Enoch was written down, I don't know. But the I think these traditions are very ancient. You know, this is going back to Moses and the tabernacle in the wilderness, and you know.
And I think
So
even
what?
in Enoch, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
I was just wondering though, so what, how did Moses, so that's where I think the two start to get a little blurry, because how did not Moses, Noah, know that some animals were clean and some were unclean? I didn't think that
That's right.
had been, you know, that's kind of sounds like it may be a bit of a projection by the Hebrews into Enoch.
Exactly. Because at the time of, unless of course, the time of Enoch, it was they already had those traditions of clean and unclean.
Enoch echoes a lot too in Revelation. I mean, you've spoken about that a lot too, like this cross-referencing back and forth all the time, paralleling the stories and sort of the teachings. I mean, there's a lot of elements of Revelation that you pick out of parts of Enoch as well.
Yeah.
Even some of the way they use the symbology. You know,
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, clearly, Enoch undoubtedly existed in more or less this form by 200 BC. We know that because we have manuscripts from that time. So 300 years before the Revelation was finished. So, and probably a lot longer. It's apocalyptic. So,
Interesting.
so anything else?
No, I just thought it was interesting in your first, going back to your first lesson about Enoch, that essay that you read about saying that because Enoch was taken up like Elijah, he didn't die, right? He was just taken up. And then that essay that you read saying that maybe I misunderstood what you were trying to say, but for the prophecy to be fulfilled, Enoch would have to die for the 3 days and then be resurrected as well. Is that true? He has to have his first death?
You know, no. Enoch is supposed to be, he was simply taken up.
Right.
Um, uh, and it's he is supposedly one of the two witnesses who comes back with Enoch and Elijah right before the because the two of them both were taken up without dying, and then they'll be killed.
Okay, so that's
in Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem, yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that okay, thank you. Because I was getting muddled up listening to that lecture this morning, trying to figure that out. Oh.
It's very helpful to map it out, you know,
Yes.
to create a little graph, a tree, you know, as to who's doing what to whom.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, so let's pray. It is truly me to bless thee, O Theotokos, ever blessed and most blameless, the mother of our God, more honorable than the cherubim, more glorious beyond compare than the seraphim. Without corruption that gave us birth to God the Word, the very Theotokos, we magnify thee. The blessing of the Lord be upon you through his grace and love for mankind, always now and ever into ages of ages.